my council members up here.
That's true.
Is that more appropriate? We are the champions, my friends.
Got the attention.
Sorry. Okay, well, thank you for joining us. It's a day to be celebrated. We appreciate families and friends being here for our newly electeds and old friends. I see some of our city employees and a lot of familiar faces in the audience. So thank you for joining us this evening. For the record, it is Tuesday, January 7th. It's a few minutes after 6. We'll start with roll call attendance. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum.
Here.
Councilmember Burns.
Here.
Councilmember Palmer.
Here.
Councilmember Little Roberts.
Here.
Councilmember Cavanagh.
Here.
Councilmember Borton.
Here.
Mayor DeVeard.
Here. Item number 2 is a Pledge of Allegiance. If you will all rise and join us in the pledge to our flag. Contrary to a recent post, there is a right way to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and it's the way they do it in elementary school. Okay, item 3 is our community invocation. Tonight will be led by Larry Woodard. He is with 10 Mile Christian Church. Larry, as always, we appreciate you being here. I invite you all to join us in the community invocation, or take this as an opportunity for a moment of reflection.
Well, I've been doing this now for over 10 years, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight. I wanted to recognize all the new people, but they're still sitting out here. So everybody knows who they are. I pray for your husband now that you're home all the time.
You know, Larry, I think that's why he will still be at work.
Okay.
But thank you for your prayers. They're
Yeah,
always
all right.
welcome.
Well, let's pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, one thing that has made this Meridian special for the past few years has been our recognition that you have watched over our city as it has grown in such a rapid manner. We have watched this rapid change and have always looked to you and this council as the guiding forces behind such change. I pray that you will guide our new mayor and this city council as further changes occur. Based on news reports, more businesses and apartments are coming this next year at a rate that we could not imagine. Keep our city safe as all this road construction and building occurs. Be with our police force as they enforce new laws, especially the prohibition of driving with a phone in one hand and a steering wheel in the other. Road construction this year will be a challenge as we widen Meridian Road, Chinden Road, 10 Mile roads. We've moved from being a laid-back residential community to a growing bedroom community overnight. May our expanded schools this next year handle this growth, and may our children be safe as they go to school. Lastly, I just ask that you bless this council and the men and women who are going off of it, and the men and women who are coming on as new members. They're going to tackle some tough issues this next few months, and we pray that you'd watch over them and guide them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Yeah, you're
Happy New Year.
Okay, item number 4 is adoption of the agenda.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borton.
move we adopt the agenda as published. Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as published. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. Item 5 is announcements. Any news for the record? Okay. Item 6, future meeting topics. Mr. Clerk.
Madam Mayor, there were no sign-ins.
Thank you. Item 7, under action items, old business. Item 7A is a public hearing continued from December 3rd for H 2019-0099. The application has been withdrawn. It was withdrawn on December 5th. Council, I will need a motion to accept this withdrawal.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borton.
move we accept the withdrawal of the application H 2019-0099.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the withdrawal of the application on 7A, and I'll ask Mr. Clerk to call roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Burnt?
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer? Aye. Councilmember Little Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh? Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
All ayes. There were no items moved from our work session, so we'll move into the swearing-in ceremonies. And what I'll do is I will take it by each of the city council seats, and then the mayor. I will ask the outgoing elected official if they have any comments. And then I will ask the candidate that is being sworn in to come join me at the podium, bring what they would like to use to be sworn in on, and family members they would like to accompany them. And at that point, when they take their seat, we'll ask that they give remarks, thank any special guests that they have in the audience, and after that concludes, they'll start their new business. So I'm going to go down to the podium, council, and we will ask Ms. Lowell Roberts if she has any remarks that she wants to say as I move.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. After the gracious time we had last month, prior to the end of the year, I feel like I've kind of had my opportunity, but just would like to say thank you again for those of us, for those that I've had an opportunity to serve and to work with. It has truly been an honor, each and every one of you that I have gotten to know and not only work with, but to feel like you are my friend, and those friendships will carry on. Meridian's got the best citizens and the best employees anywhere you could ask, and I look forward to watching the new mayor and council continue with the wonderful path of people that we have.
Thank you, Ms. Lowell Roberts. So item 8A is the swearing in for City Council Member Seat 1, Elizabeth Strader. If Elizabeth and her family will come forward. Okay, if you will raise your right hand. Okay. I state your name.
I, Elizabeth Strader,
Do solemnly swear that I will support
do solemnly swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Idaho,
and the Constitution of the State of Idaho,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of City Council Member of the City of Meridian
of City Council Member of the City of Meridian
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone who is here. The gravity and the specialness of this day are very heavy for me and very meaningful. I would just like to thank all of the voters who participated in our process. I would love to thank Ann Little Roberts, who I think has been a fantastic city councilwoman, and I hope to continue her good work that she's done. And then finally, I'd like to thank the volunteers that helped, and also my family. The campaign process was not easy, and each member of my family personally helped so much. And I would like to give a special thank you to my sister, Emily Shasso. Sorry. My sister is such an inspiration to me, and she is the reason that I got this idea in the first place. And she was by my side the whole way. And then finally, I also want to thank Jessica Perot. We ran a lot of our campaign together. And in the process, not only did I find a colleague, but I found a friend. So I just want to thank everyone, especially Mayor Tammy and the members of council who have been so wonderful during the process. Thank you.
Item 8B is the swearing in of City Council Member Seat 3, but before I do that, I'll ask Mr. Palmer if he has any remarks.
Sure. I can't look at my family. Already gone. There's a scripture that says, we've learned by sad experience that it is the nature and disposition of almost all men. As soon as they get a little authority, as they suppose, they will immediately begin to exercise in righteous dominion. And from the moment I was sworn in, I walked into every city council meeting and every budget hearing, and especially every meeting I ever had with a constituent. And with that verse in mind, ringing in my ears. Determined not to fall into the almost all men that's referenced in that verse. And I'll walk out that door tonight with my family, knowing that there's not one moment of my service here for which they should be ashamed. And here in a moment, it's their opinion will be the only one left that matters to me. And I look forward to spending much more time with them now.
So I will ask City Council Member Seat 3, Brad Hoagland, to please come join me at the podium. You'll raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Brad Hoagland,
Do solemnly swear that I will support
do solemnly swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Idaho,
and the Constitution of the State of Idaho,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of City Council Member of the City of Meridian
of City Council Member of the City of Meridian
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
Family photos doesn't happen too often.
Now, as Brad makes his way up there, I had the privilege of appointing Brad Hoagland to a city council seat over a decade ago. So it's great to have him back.
See you around.
Thank you, Mayor Tammy. I just have a few thank yous for some folks. I just want to, of course, thank my family. When you decide to run for office, the first person you better consult is your spouse because it impacts them. And Chandis, my wife, was more than willing to say, yes, go off and do this again. This is not my first rodeo at it. And my folks, Stan and Sandy, were here. Of course, they've always supported me and kind of instilled in me that sense of community service. So I thank them for that. But I do have to say, when I was thinking this summer, I heard about some changes coming on City Council. So my folks just live a mile away, went up there, and I said, hey, Mom, I'm thinking about running for City Council. And she goes, you need to have your head examined. It's true story. But I said, Mom, wait, I've been on City Council before. I know what I'm getting into. That's why you need to have your head examined. So, I don't give up easily. So I said, well, you will vote for me, right? I'll think about it. True story. But, it's because of those values they instilled in me that I wanted to run. You also saw my son, Tyler, and his wife, Jennifer, and my 3 grandkids. And, and that really factored into the reason for running because they live in Meridian. My son grew up in Meridian. It's a great place. This is where I grew up, and it's a great community. It has changed tremendously. But at the same time, there are great things about this community, and that's what we want to keep. We want to keep that sense of community, no matter our size. And that's why I thought, I need to go on and do the best of my ability that I can to make sure that they have a great place to live. And I know at the same time that is a sacrifice. And Ty mentioned it, spending more time with family. And Ann and Genesis, that you do give up part of that when you come here, but it's worth the sacrifice. And I appreciate your work on this. And I know the 3 people remaining on council do a lot for this community and really put in the time for that. I also have to thank, because this is my second rodeo, David Zrimba is here, a former council member. Charlie Roundtree I served with. I don't know if Charlie made it tonight. And of course, Keith Bird, who we lost last year, was very helpful to me. And it was a different time. There was 4 of us and the mayor, and she got to ride herd over the 4 of us. And I think we had a good time with that. But it was a good learning experience for me. And the head-turning experience for me, however, though, is at that time when I served before, I was the youngest member of council. And now, it turned out, now I'm the oldest member of city council. Now, some things. But I also want to thank, as I point out their help to me, the ability to do this also extends my thanks to Mission Aviation Fellowship in Napa, my employer. I've been there for a year now, and to take time, every one of us that are up here serving and have served, you have to take time away from your primary job. And there has to be that flexibility and willingness to work with you on that. And I want to thank them for wanting to meet me to be involved with my community. And that is what they're about, is that service to begin with, so they do what they say. And I do appreciate that. It's also something that I want to thank, believe it or not, the city employees, because coming back to here wouldn't have been so much fun if you work with people that don't like what they do, but these people like what they do. And they're very good at it. We have great city employees, and I hope the citizens recognize that. They're dedicated, they're professional, and they have a great culture of service. Their commitment to the citizens is second to none. And of course, I have to go back and credit Mayor Tammy with that. 16 years at the helm, that's a wonderful time. And I do have one other story to tell, and it's how I got on council. And it's rather embarrassing because someone came to me, I knew, they didn't know the mayor, and there was a vacancy for city council. And they said, Brad, you know the mayor, and I'd worked with her in her first campaign back in 2003 and helped in some others. But they said, I don't know her, she won't know me, but you know her. Could you put in a good word for me, at least, make sure she looks at my background? I said, Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. They were a good person, and had some good qualities. Didn't have any city experience, but I'll do that. Well, as Tammy does from time to time, she'll show up at various churches and whatnot, and I happen to be an usher greeter at our church, and it just so happened when I had that conversation with that week, she showed up Sunday morning. So oh, Mayor Tammy, great to have you here. And hey, by the way, I have something to tell you. This person is putting in for this vacancy, and you ought to take a look at them. I personally know them. I can vouch for them. They're a good person, and they might have the qualifications you're looking for. She said, well, that's very good, Brad. And then she looked at me. She kind of cocked her head and says, well, what about you? And that kind of hit me. I was ready to throw out, my kids, my son and my daughter, they're very involved in school, played 3 sports, and our daughter had just left for college that fall. And so it wasn't like, I can't say volleyball, basketball, and track anymore, or, the sports she was involved with. I went, let me think about it. So I have to blame you, Mayor Tammy. This is all your fault. But there, great choice. Yeah. But there was something I found when I was going through some papers from that 2003 campaign. And I thought, this is very apropos. You had said we can continue to grow by chance or by choice. I don't know if you remember that, but that was something you were campaigning on. And of course, when I came on council, it was a very different time, and it was a very difficult time in coming in 08 and 09 and with the recession. But even today, the dynamics have changed, and this council has changed, and the mayor has changed. But we do have a choice. We can continue to grow by chance or by choice. And I look forward to all of us working together to grow by choice and how we look as a community. And I'm excited about that, so I look forward to it. Thank you.
And just to add to Brad's story, I had already cleared it with his pastor, with his wife, and so he just didn't know it. Okay, item 8C is the swearing in of City Council Member Seat 5. And before we ask Jessica Perot to come join us up front, I will ask Council Member Mylum for any parting remarks she might have.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I'd like to first thank all of you for coming out for my special day. It means a lot to me. The last 6 years have been incredible. I've made some wonderful friends, and I think we've done some amazing things for our community. The friendships, the relationships, the employees, that's the hard part for me to leave. So today is a sad day. And I want to tell you, just you guys, and I want to thank the new people for stepping up to run, all you new electeds, and to be here and give of your time. Remember to keep it funny as I cry, which is right, ironic. And long live tot lots. That's about it. Just thank you all for your love, all the employees of the city, how much you really love the place that you work, and it shows and it shines through everything that you do. And it's been my pleasure, and I hope to see all of you guys around. I'll be back.
Okay, well, Jessica, please come and join us after her hug. Okay, raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Jessica Peru,
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Idaho,
and the Constitution of the State of Idaho,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of City Council Member of the City of Meridian
of the City Council Member of the City of Meridian
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Good evening, everyone. So I'd like to echo my new fellow council members and say thank you very much to the staff who we have gotten to know over the last couple of months, and how incredibly impressed I am with their commitment, dedication, and attitude as they come in every day and faithfully serve our city. It's been amazing. I have gotten to know some of them through my service on planning and zoning, but I just had no idea how awesome you all are, and I'm excited to serve with you. I wanted to say thank you as well to the many people who supported me through the decision to run for council. That was a very long decision. It took me about a year to decide. Genesis faithfully encouraged me on a regular basis to run for her seat, and as did the mayor. Every time I would see her, she encouraged me. And I just appreciate I just can't even believe the phenomenal amount of support that I've received to be up here. And friends, several good friends here this evening, all over the audience, thank you so much for coming and being here. And I also want to say hello on camera to my son, who is in Florida serving in the Marine Corps. He can't be here tonight. And also to Craig, who is... who is out visiting his daughter this week. So unfortunately, I don't have close family here, but my friends are family. And so thank you all for being here.
Maybe this one is hard. So our next item is to swear in our new mayor. And I'll just take a moment to thank the staff. You're my family. And I know I keep saying that I didn't run again because I wanted to spend more time with my family. Now it's my other family. Would like to thank my husband. Okay, you have an emotional mayor. I'm not going to change. There was a reason why they started to introduce my family at my State of the City instead of me, because I would always cry when I talked about family. I appreciated Mr. Palmer and him choking up about family as well, because family is what our community is about. It was a purposeful vision that we set 16 years ago to focus on family, to focus on youth, to focus on re-engaging our faith community, and to focus on bringing family wage jobs so that our community was full service and we could live, work, and raise our family right here in Meridian. And folks, we did it, and we did it by working together. And many of those faces are in this room, and maybe some of them are tuning in online, but that's what a community does when they work together. So my heartfelt thanks to our community. It's been certainly an honor to serve the city of Meridian and be able to be on a journey as we have seen our city grow up. And I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for our newly elected officials that have shown such great passion for our community and such grit and determination that is going to be needed as we enter this next chapter, this new decade for Meridian. So I hope that everyone in this audience, when you're here supporting your loved one, continue. They're going to need your support because being a public official is not always easy, and especially those that have young families. To the spouses and supporting network, they're going to need you. And so I challenge you to stay involved and to be involved in our community, because we have some amazing things coming up, but we have also some challenges that we need a community working together to right. So with that, I am excited to ask the new mayor to come forward, Robert Simison, and his family, so we can swear him in. If you'll raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Robert Eugene Simison,
Do solemnly swear that I will support
do solemnly swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Idaho,
and the Constitution of the State of Idaho,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of Mayor of the City of Meridian
of the Mayor of the City of Meridian
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Well, it's, people have been asking me for 2 months if I'm excited, if I'm nervous. Right now, yes. But what I heard people talk about this evening was, a lot of it was about family and the role that they play, not only in the lives and the decisions that we make, but it's really about the community that we are. And that was the reason why, after many conversations with Mayor Tammy, I made the decision to run, was to keep this community focused on our families. And the people that were here tonight don't often get a chance to come down here to City Hall for my family. My wife and children, they definitely have been here. But we also had my in-laws who live 3 doors down, who are basically co-raising our children. Couldn't do this without you. So you know that. I don't say it enough. But their sacrifice allows me to be sitting here and doing this job, and for the next 4 years at least. To my mom and my stepdad, thank you for all the work ethic that you instilled in me over the years, for being here, supporting me, my decisions, going to college, going off to DC, coming back, being there and being part of that. And I had a long-lost uncle and my cousin who I've been able to reacquaint with over the last couple years being back in the area. That's what makes this area so special and this community so special, is the role and the focus the family plays. And finally, to my sister, you've been a second mom to me. Thank you. I couldn't have done this without you all my life. So with that, I'm going to try not to cry anymore. I didn't think I would be that emotional. I keep telling them I'm not emotional, but apparently I am when it comes to these things.
It's in the chair.
Yeah. To the room, while they're my support network to raise my family, to allow me to be here and do this, looking out across the room, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you who gave so much of your time and your energy, and you picked up the phone, you showed up, and you helped out throughout this process. This was about a community wanting to continue the direction that we've been on, and I couldn't have been here without you. Brad already mentioned it, but the shoulders that we sit up here on, from my perspective, being someone in the community for the last dozen years. Keith Bird, who wish he was here. I know his wife Marge was hoping to be here, but she wasn't able to make it. And David and Charlie. And as was mentioned, we had Brad and Joe were kind of right there when I first started. That was the group along with Mayor Tammy where I think I really learned most of what I believed in terms of how we should be working and moving this community forward. So I'd like to think that I learned from a dream team, the greats that have tried to instill how we want to both have decorum here, but how we want to work together and move the community forward. I'm excited to work with this group. I've known them, several of them in several different ways for most of my time here, a few new ones that I've gotten the chance, opportunity. I think the community is going to be very impressed with this group that we have and the work that we'll set out to do to improve our community. So with that, I'm just going to say thank you for being here. We have a meeting that we have to do, but there is cake and some punch out there for anybody that would like it. All I ask is that you save my son Ryan a piece, because if he doesn't get some cake, I'm going to hear about it, and he's got to go to wrestling here in a few minutes, so maybe he can make a door to it. So with that, I'll say thank you. And I'm going to call just a 5-minute recess while we let people maneuver throughout the room. So I don't have a gavel, but.
funny.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Bring us back in for the record. It is 6:53, and we will begin with roll call attendance. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Perot.
Here?
Councilmember Burns. Here. Councilmember Hoagland.
Here.
Councilmember Strader. Councilmember Cavanagh.
Here.
Councilmember Borton.
Here.
Mayor Simison.
Here. All right. Next.
Sorry, that's not appropriate, sorry. We've been clapping all night, I figured we could clap again.
Our first item under new business, item 10A, is public hearing for 10 Mile McMillan, H29-0126. I'll open this public hearing for staff comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. You'll have to bear with me a little bit. I've been used to saying Madam Mayor for the last 16 years, so they might slip out every once in a while. So, Mayor Little Biscuit, you'll have to give me a little bit of grace there if I slip up every once. No, Mr. Mayor, members of council, the first agenda item for you this year is a modification to a development agreement on 14.36 acres of land. Zone CG, that's our general retail and commercial zone. It's located on the northeast corner of 10 Mile Road and West McMillan Road. The applicant is requesting a new development agreement to replace an existing DA for the Verona commercial project. You can see on the screen there is a parcel of that original Verona project that is not part of the subject application right on the corner of 10 Mile and McMillan, but everything that's highlighted on the screen is part of the subject modification to the development agreement. Conceptual development plan was submitted, including a senior living multifamily development and then commercial uses on the remaining pad sites. So again, you can see on the right-hand side of your screen that senior living multifamily with the conceptual plan and the remaining commercial pad sites, again, right on the corner, is not a part of the application tonight. Conceptual building elevations were submitted with the application for the multifamily development. However, a CUP is required. The current development agreement prohibits what they're proposing there, the senior living multifamily. So this action, if approved by you, would open the door for them to apply and go through the conditional use permit process to get detailed approval potentially for a senior living multifamily project similar to the one you see on the screen. But it does not guarantee that or vest them with that approval. So there are the conceptual elevations and renderings. But again, these would go through that public hearing process with the Planning and Zoning Commission for further review and approval. This just allows that as a potential use in this development agreement. A cross-access, cross-parking easement agreement is also required. So that's a condition of the new development agreement in the staff report so that all lots can share that spine, Collector Road, Milano, Cortana, and then additionally the access points to 10 Mile that were provided in McMillan that were provided by ACHD previously so that all those lots can have connectivity kind of as shown on that exhibit on the left. We do have written testimony from the applicant's representative that they are in agreement with the staff report, but that is a general overview of this application, and I would stand for any questions.
Any questions for staff?
None at this time.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple quick questions.
Councilmember Schrader?
Okay, thank you. I wanted to check, and forgive me because I'm just getting started, so I may have a lot of questions, but I'm not going to hold back on asking them. I just wanted to understand if during the process, because this use was not permitted previously, and check that there will be an opportunity for a public hearing. So that was my question, if that would be part of the process going forward. And then maybe not a question, but a comment. I noticed in several places that the permitted use was senior living / multifamily, and I just wanted to make sure that having that description would not make it so that it could end up being a multifamily project and not actually a senior living project.
So, Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Strader, so yes, to answer your first question, this would be subject to a new public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission. So it requires a new conditional use permit approval. I just want to clarify, the zoning, the CG zone allows senior living / multifamily both. The development agreement tied that down further, though, back when this was annexed before and limited those uses. But the underlying zoning of the property technically would be a conditionally allowed use. So this isn't a use exception or anything like that. It is a use that would otherwise be permitted. There was just this contract between the city and the property owner at that time where they didn't envision this type of use. They envisioned commercial uses only. And so essentially they're pulling that back and saying, other uses that are otherwise allowed in the CG zone, we'd also like to potentially have here. Your second question, there is no guarantee, although I'm under the impression, and I have no reason to doubt that they're going to follow this up immediately with that conditional use permit. The applicant is here, though, so if there are some other sideboards or parameters that you've got concerns about the multifamily tagging here and you want to see more of the 55 and over senior, this concept, I have looked at this historically, but I don't know how they plan to market or only rent to a certain demographic or not. So I think that's probably why there's the slash there. But that's probably a question better answered by the applicant. And then again, if you have some concerns with maybe what they're wanting to open that up to, this application is, again, there's an existing contract where this use wouldn't be allowed, and there's a little some negotiation, or again, if you want to put conditions on it, that is certainly within your purview.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Neri.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Strader, the other thing I could add from the public hearing standpoint, tonight is a notice public hearing. So this has been noticed, radius notice has been sent, mailed notice has been sent, published, as well as signage on the property. So an opportunity to participate is also on this level of the application, in addition to the application for the project when it comes forward.
Councilmember Schrader.
Thank you. That helped a lot. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Okay, if I could ask Chris, would you mind turning the podium around? We didn't get it turned around.
Thank you.
Just for those that are new to this process, we will hear from the applicant for up to 15 minutes regarding their project, then we'll take public testimony for up to 3 minutes, unless there's anybody here representing an HOA or a group, which then they'd be afforded 10 minutes. The applicant will also have the final comment after any comments from the public, and then we'll move forward. So with that, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Tamara Thompson. I'm with the Land Group, 462 East Shore Drive in Eagle. Tonight I'm here representing the property owner and the developer of the senior living. I won't go into a lot of detail. I think staff did a great job of giving you the overview of the project. It is a development agreement modification. The one thing I do want to clarify, though, is on the hard corner, which is excluded from this. Jackson's recently processed a development agreement modification to get into a new development agreement for them exclusively. So that's why they're excluded from this one, because they own that corner separately. And they already processed that DA mod. The questions regarding the semantics of the senior living slash multifamily, it really is just, it's not a nursing home, and that's what we were trying to portray, is that it is more active senior living. It is age restricted to 55 and older, and hopefully that explains that. Otherwise, I'm here for questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Perot.
Can you chat with us a little bit about the height of the building? I mean, I know that that's not something that we're going to be discussing specifically, but I just was curious, that area doesn't have any other four-story buildings, so can you share a little bit about how that came to be?
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman
Perot.
Perot, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Perot. Congratulations, by the way. The building design, we have, these are conceptual designs at this time. They have been placed such that the ends of buildings, and you can see here that, like here, where the ends do kind of There's a lot of modulation, fenestration in the buildings. There's also a large setback from the adjacent residential areas. There's a public roadway, and they're about 200 feet away. And then one of the other positive things is that when the roads were put in, the street trees were installed at that time. And so the trees are actually quite large. So the taller buildings actually do really fit in nicely in the area. You know, one thing I want to just go back and reiterate is Caleb mentioned it, but we are in agreement with the staff report. He mentioned that I sent in a letter, but I want to make sure that's on the record. So we have read the staff report, and we're in agreement with the conditions.
Any other questions for the
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Borton?
Tamara, can you comment briefly on the distinction between this DA modification and that it allows a project like this to go forward and what is addressed in the CUP that comes later?
Absolutely. Mr. Mayor, Councilman Borton, the difference is that the development agreement is a contract that sometimes limits what a zone would otherwise allow, and in this case, it did. So we need to do a development agreement modification in order to allow the use, and then within that zoning designation, there's either permitted or conditional or not permitted uses. And this use is a conditional use. So then the use itself will come back with the number of rooms and the amenities and all those types of things, all the details. So the way I think about it is we're kind of in a helicopter hovering over at 5,000 feet, and when we come in with the conditional use permit, we're going to be on the ground and give you all the details at that time. And we are planning to submit on Friday.
Any additional questions? Councilwoman Schrader?
Mr. Mayor, yes, I have a question. If you could just clarify, if we could have the applicant clarify if going through the amenities and the percentage of open space associated with this project would then be part of this conditional use permit discussion in the future?
I will ask staff to respond to that question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, so we do have, I'm not sure if this is going to be subdivided or not. I don't believe it is, but we do have two different types of open space that are required for multifamily projects. So we'll have private usable open space, and then we'll have required amenities in open space as well with the project. So that will be part of that conditional use permit. We'll look at the amenities package and open spaces based on how many units, are provided, proposed at that time.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any people signed up to testify?
Mr. Mayor, yes, there are 10 sign-ins, one indicating they wish to testify, and that is Cheryl Tolman.
Thank you. Cheryl, if you state your name and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Cheryl Tolman. I live at 2695 West McMillan Road, just around the corner from this. So, first of all, the signs only say modified development agreement. Nowhere in it does it say we're going to all of a sudden add a 170-unit, 4-story apartment building. So I went around today to my neighborhood. Nobody was aware of this. Nobody knew that this was what they were talking about. Nobody seem to be in favor of it. 4 stories does not fit in that neighborhood. And it's a quiet neighborhood right now, but it will not be for long when we add potentially 200 cars that aren't there. In fact, one gentleman I spoke with said that before he bought his house, he looked into what the agreement said. It was commercial, which it still is allowing for those same commercial buildings, but now it's allowing for huge building. From what I was able to gather, the original agreement says that they can't have any building over any non-residential building over 50,000 square feet, and the total was like 225,000 for all 9 buildings. They're still going to have 9 buildings, but now they're going to have this monster building with added traffic that it just can't support. I live on McMillan Road, and we talk about family, and I'm concerned about my young drivers getting in and out of my property because we have no choice but to use that McMillan Road. And more cars is just not helping. And I think we need to really grow by choice. I think it was already decided to do it a certain way, and I think that was approved, and that's what the residents are expecting. I don't think we should modify it to that great extent. And so I just, unfortunately, I lost my notes that I really had, but I just really think that we need to think about what we're doing here and not just approve it because some developer put money into it when they know what the agreement is. The agreement was you could have the 9 commercial buildings up to a certain size. And I think that we need to honor that agreement, that the residents, I don't think that we always need to grow at the expense of the existing residents. I think we need to choose quality of life over quantity of people. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Thank you.
Nobody else indicated they wish to testify.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience who did not sign up who would like to testify on this application? Please come forward. You can state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Dan Votrebeck. I live at 2877 West Turin Court. And according to your maps, that puts the apartments right in line with my house and all of the others that live in this court. There's 20 homes in there. It was slated to be a 55 and over. It was also slated to be owner live-in. Sorry to say about 12 of them are rentals. We have enough problems with that. The traffic is terrible getting out from Cortona to McMillan or from, what's the other street? Milano to 10 Mile. All you got to do is drive out there after 3 o'clock and wait in line and find out. I would suggest that if you're going to go through with this process, that lights be located at both of those at Cortona and the other street there. I think that's safety first. Like I say, other than that, I moved out there, had a beautiful big barn, and right outside my bedroom window, that is now gone. It is turned into storage areas. At least I can still see some of my landscape. When we first moved in, we were told the other side of the fence east of us would be small homes like we have. It turned out to be apartments, which blocked our view from Bogus. And, you know, being an old farm boy and country boy, I miss that. I feel they're kind of forcing me out, and this is just going to make it tighter. You know, that's all I have. Is any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, my name is Matt Nauman. I'm a commercial real estate broker for Cushman & Wakefield and representing the buyer or the developer in this, or actually the senior living developer, not the developer of the whole project. But I just wanted to chat for a minute and let you know that I did bring quite a few different projects to the developer, and he was very selective in what would work in this location. I sell a lot of multifamily land, pure, true multifamily land. And this development that's going here now, the senior development, the active senior, does not have near the traffic flow that a regular apartment does. They've got full-time kitchen staff, all the amenities, they've got shuttles. So with the community talking about traffic flow, this is going to provide far less traffic than if you put a retail development in there that's going to provide more. And then on top of that, the neighbors that, want to complain about the noise, you don't have a big box that is driving semis in and out of there at 3, 4, or 5 in the morning. So from both a noise standpoint and a traffic standpoint, this is less intrusive than a retail development in that location.
Just for the record, could you put your address in, please?
What was that?
Can you put your address in the record?
I registered, but 9090 West Teakwood, Boise.
Any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to testify?
For the record, Kent Brown, 3161 East Springwood, Meridian, Idaho. I'm here on another item, but I see the struggle that we end up having because the comp plan calls out that we got to put mixed use. The single family is what they wanted to put in, and they did that, and they tried to guess for the future. And that's why you have the DA mods to allow you to make a change. I can agree with the real estate agent when you're talking about a residential, especially if it's a senior. We're seeing a lot of seniors coming to the valley. That's one of the biggest demographics that I'm being told by real estate people. People are moving here to spend their retirement dollars because we're such a bargain. But they have a different traffic impact. You can look across the street and the other two corners on the west. With those being commercial, those commercial uses would have a lot greater impact on the area. And that's all day long, maybe not in the evening. But I don't see seniors other than hurrying for the discount dinner that they can get going someplace. But other than that, and you still have the approval of the CU that has to take place. So as the details of that comes in and how the mitigation and so forth, you got comments coming from the highway district at that time. To me, you end up being able to make a more informed decision than you're just entertaining, if you will, the right to do senior and multifamily on that property today. And who's to say that when it comes through in the CU that it is 2-story or 1-story or something else on that property than the concept that you've seen. I think they've shown you the worst case scenario, but it is difficult when we are doing these preliminary plats and trying to comply with the comp plan to guess for the future. And I can tell you as I bring applications to you in the future, I have to deal with some of these multifamily corners or these mixed-use corners, and we're guessing because that is the last thing that takes place after you've put the houses there, is then you start doing the commercial. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions? Anyone else wish to testify? I'm sorry, you can't speak from back there, you've already spoken. So with that, we'll ask the applicant to come up.
Mr. Chair, or, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Caleb, can I get you to put both the side-by-side site plans back up for me, please? Thank you. Tamara Thompson for the record again. To respond to some of the comments that we received, I just want to make it clear we did have a neighborhood meeting in accordance with the requirements of the city. And at that neighborhood meeting, the site plan and the concept elevations were shown at that time. The senior living was definitely discussed with the neighbors. As far as this site, so this has already been zoned and platted. Actually, I went through a preliminary and final plat for the property many years ago. And what is allowed on the site, so the city of Meridian has basically 3 commercial zonings. We have neighborhood commercial, community commercial, and general commercial. This one is the general commercial, the CG, which is the more intense of the 3. And the development agreement only limited one single user as 50,000 square feet for retail or commercial uses. A big box user, that size would be a smaller Albertsons grocery store type thing, or a D&B Supply. You would have deliveries coming and going. You would have customers all day long. Those types of uses are much more intense than what's being proposed as the senior living. This, and the details of those will come with the CUP, but most of the residents, so these are apartments, they're not purchased, they are rentals, but they do eat their meals on site. They have dining on site, they have entertainment on site, and they have to have shuttle services. So most of them are not driving. The other thing I wanted to point out is that the commercial pads are still in the front. That these are still planned as commercial, and this is the way the plat currently is laid out. With we did a boundary line adjustment for the larger parcel in the back, and then we have the pads, and then there'll be an internal access drive. That won't be a public street, but it'll be an internal access drive. So with that, we respectfully request your approval tonight, and I'll stand for any further questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Cavanagh.
Thank you. Tamara, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Appreciate you bringing up the neighborhood meeting. How many members of representing the neighbors were in attendance at that neighborhood meeting?
Oh, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Kavanagh, I believe, I looked at the sign-in sheet today. I did not do that neighborhood meeting myself. I looked at the sign-in sheet today, and it looked like there were about 10 to 12 that signed in. And I believe we submitted that with our application. Caleb, is that something you have access to?
Mr. Mayor? Tamara, in that regard, then when you send out a letter to the neighbors, do you put a description of of what it is the meeting will be covering? It's more detailed than just an invitation, correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman, it's for the land group, it's our practice to put what the use is. And I did do the letter for this one. I just wasn't available for the meeting, so I did send out the neighborhood meeting invitation, and it did specify senior housing.
Caleb, were you able to find that information?
Mr. Mayor, I pulled it up.
It looks like it's 6 is what we're hearing from council.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman, member?
Councilwoman is just fine.
Councilwoman Schrader.
Thank you for presenting today. I understand that you were not in attendance at the neighborhood meeting. And what I honestly struggle with is that we don't have a videotape of that meeting. We don't have any kind of information, sort of coming for ourselves so that we can review how the meeting went. What types of concerns did you hear at the meeting, or did a member of the developers team here? Can you give us a sense of how you tried to address the neighbors' concerns, especially with regard to the 4-story building height potentially, and how you tried to mitigate those concerns, please?
Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, I'll bring up another member of the team that was at that neighborhood meeting. Okay.
State your name and address for the record.
Tyler Brennan. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. So I was at in attendance of the neighborhood meeting. We did have a gentleman come and approach me and asking questions. And just to back up, we did have large color renderings of what you guys are seeing tonight, blown up on large easels so that the neighbor could see the 4 stories and see the architectural design that we want to bring is more of a residential feel. The finishes of the building are stone with architectural siding and a lot of deviation in the roof lines and the building with pop-outs to give it more of a residential look. In regards to the 4 stories, the way that the buildings are situated, we have them sort of tucked back and they go away from the neighborhoods. And then the tree buffering helps a lot again, the only 4-story buildings are only the 2 on the north and south side. The clubhouse in the center is not 4 stories, it's only 2 stories. And we were trying to obviously be well within the zone 65 feet that's currently allowed. So I believe we're just over 40 feet. But after showing the residents the color renderings, there was not any opposition at that point. They welcomed the design. They saw the level of finishes, the architectural windows, the shingles, the stone, the siding that we're doing on the buildings. Then they were more excited about the project than having to look at the back of a large big box retail store that could go up to 60 feet. So I hope that answers your question, Mr. Mayor and council members.
Councilwoman Schrader.
Thank you. And I guess just to further clarify, Mr. Mayor, if I may, did you make any changes to the design of the project in response to concerns from residents, or you really didn't receive any concerns at that meeting and didn't make any changes?
Councilmember, no, we have not. We're well down the road with design of this building, as long as everything is approved. This is what we are delivering. This is what we will be, what you see in those renderings, those elevations is what we are going to deliver, or we intend to deliver. We did not make any changes.
Councilmember Burnt.
Mr. Mayor, wow, that sounds interesting. Weird, Mr. Mayor. Just so the folks can know they're in attendance, just so that we can clarify, and maybe to piggyback on some comments made by Mr. Brown. So this meeting isn't, we're not talking about the design of this building tonight. We're not approving this development tonight. If you have concerns about maybe what this looks like, if you have issues with the height or the commercial aspect of it or whatever the case may be, I would invite you to, and it will be renoticed again when the CUP goes before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then you'll have an opportunity to discuss your concerns in regard to what it looks like. I feel like we're sort of going down the road of talking about what it's going to look like and how many, whatever details, and that's just not what we're discussing tonight. So you'll have an opportunity to talk more about that in the future. Just wanted to make you aware so you're not so concerned.
Are there any further questions for the applicant?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members.
Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Cavanagh.
Question for Mr. Johnson, not meaning to put you on the spot. I see we sent approximately 75 postcards to the homeowners that are within 300 feet. I know it has been kind of a practice at the city that we also do additional postings via Nextdoor. I'm just curious if we did that in this particular case. Maybe just for the benefit of the public to outline what communication we did, just because when I hear folks say we weren't told about that, for your benefit, at the council, we hear that a lot, that people feel like, oh, we weren't informed, and sometimes you get a postcard and you're not quite sure what it means, and then you see a sign, and it's like, oh, where's that postcard? So I just was hoping maybe for our new council and for the public to get a good understanding about when it's required, what the applicant does, and how we communicate with the public.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Cavanagh, members of council, I'm looking at Nextdoor now to see when we posted, but it is our practice to send the 300-foot postcards as required by code. We do post on our website as soon as the development comes in. We had the Meridian Press noticing, which have to look and see the date, but it's generally about 30 days before. That's in the Meridian Press. And then the applicant's required to post on site. We do have an affidavit of posting showing they did that as well. But I can certainly find the next door, and those are the various methods. We notice that within code and then also beyond that.
Great. Thank you, Chris.
Is there further discussion?
I will discuss, please, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Councilwoman Schrader.
Okay. It's fun, kind of fun, and a little scary doing the discussion for the first time. Just a couple of thoughts. I'm very sensitive to a lot of residents' concerns regarding traffic, particularly with respect to multi-story residential buildings in an area where we currently have a two-lane road. I am very familiar with McMillan. I live nearby. At the same time, intuition would lead me to believe that a senior living type of use would not have the same type of traffic concerns that would be associated with a multi-story residential rental building that's not age restricted. And I do think it sounds like a commercial use could actually have worse traffic. What I would just say is, I would be supportive of approving this, I guess it's a DA modification, with the stipulation that we restrict the future intended use specifically to senior housing. It could be senior apartments, but I just want to make sure there's no confusion about the potential for multifamily housing here. It sounds like the CUP will come through. At the time that we go through that discussion, I hope that the applicant would be very sensitive to the neighbors' concerns, and that you'll be having discussions with the neighbors, and that you'll be specifically discussing the potential traffic impacts with some more research at the time that we would see that. And then we'll be having the ability for public testimony. I'll also be looking for more information about the percentage of open space, and in my, just to give people a flavor for it when they come back. I don't like people to have surprises. I think in the future, our 10% open space requirement for residential development is something that we'll be taking a look at together as a city. And if we have a two-lane road, and this is not currently an intended use under the DA agreement, I'm going to be looking for someone, hopefully, to go above and beyond the minimum requirement for open space and really try to show that they're overachieving and that this is going to fit in well with the neighborhood. I just wanted to provide those comments so you would have a little bit of a flavor for how I would be looking at that. I think we need to, increase our standards, and that we need to look at that as a city. And so that's something in the future that I'm going to be looking for.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
You done with your comments?
Yes, I'm done with my comments. Thank you.
If we don't
Councilwoman Rowe.
anticipate we will be taking an additional public testimony, I make a motion that we close the public hearing portion and continue with discussion.
Second?
All right, there's been a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
those opposed say nay. Ayes have it.
Mr. Mayor, if I may again. I
Councilwoman
don't know
Rowe.
if these questions are for staff or for Mr. Neri. I'm wondering about if council would like to testify or have comments on items related to the CUP, the specifics, as we've talked about. How do we best provide those? Would you like us to send those in writing for posting prior to the planning and zoning meeting? Or what would be our process for that?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilor Perot, it would not be appropriate for the council to comment on your desire because you were the appellate body
Okay.
for the CUP. If there are conditions you think are important to put into the development agreement,
Okay.
that would be fine, and
Okay.
that would be what tonight would be, is if you want additional direction in the DA, but not to the CUP.
Okay, I wanted to make sure. I thought that was the case, but I wasn't sure. Okay, and then the other question is, I am getting concerned about the amount of senior living that is being built in that area because of the significant difference in population numbers between the baby boomer population and the Gen Xers, which I'm a part of. It's about 30 million people. And so I anticipate here in the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to see a lot of extra senior residential living that we aren't going to need. And so I'm wondering if the CUP is going to restrict, if they are going to restrict it and make an age restriction for it, will they be allowed to remove that age restriction at a later time? And would they be permitted to do that? Or is there a time limit on the CUP? And do they come reapply for it? Can you give me some more specifics?
Sure, certainly. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Perot, number 2. The CUP is perpetual. It doesn't expire, and it doesn't require reapplication. But certainly if the market were to change or the needs were to change, the ability to come and request the change certainly is not going to change. So definitely they can be changed in the future by the owner at that time.
Is there further discussion, or is there a motion that anyone would be interested in making at this time? Councilmember Schrader.
Madam Mayor. Oh, God. 3.
And that's why Councilwoman Schrader is recognized.
Whoopsie. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Maybe my fellow council members will help me make a motion so I don't mess it up too bad. I would propose that we approve the development modification with the change that we continue in the future to restrict the future use to senior living. I think it's important that we have that as part of the approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Cavanagh.
This is a unique, this is totally, the wheels turning. So I guess a question would be for either staff, or for either Caleb or Mr. Neri. We know that development changes, what goes up, one day gets torn down, something new goes up. If we were to approve what I assume is council members' intended motion, that locks senior living into that land designation only, or only pertain to that particular development?
Great question. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Cavanagh. So this development agreement only applies to this property. And they're requesting that multifamily senior living portion in this section of this property. So the commercial would still remain on the exterior. So this restriction would only apply to that one portion of the parcel. But it wouldn't apply to any other parcels other than this.
Mr. Mayor, follow up. What happens, sorry, Mr. Mayor, what happens 100 years from now, they tear it down and they want to build apartments there? What's that process look like? I'm just curious if we're locking in, this has to be senior living from here to perpetuity.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Cavanagh, I mean, we are locking in that parcel as a residential living parcel with restricted to, and senior living, just for the public's perspective, under a development code is 55 and older. So this, as they said, this is not a nursing home facility. So again, the process would be, again, they'd have to come back for a modification to the development agreement, ask to do something else.
Okay.
Are there any further
Mr. Mayor.
discussion?
Mr. Mayor. The
Councilwoman
reason I was
Perot.
asking the questions about the height, I'm aware that that's something that will be more specifically considered with the CUP, but I do have concerns about that height and in that location. I realize that the CG allows it, but just also wanting to take into account the area, the concerns. I know there is some, I know Walmart's across the street. I know there's some more heavier uses that are coming in there, but I think it's going to really stand out more than anything else that's in that area. And so I asked about what comments that we can make, because it sounds like it's possible for us to potentially limit that if we desire to do so as part of the DA modification process. And since we're not going to have the ability to comment on the CUP, I wanted to specifically say that I'm not a huge fan of a 4-story building if that's what the applicant chooses to do. I realize that's going to be planning and zoning's ultimate decision, but and I appreciate the clarification that there's only going to be 2 buildings that are 4-story height, although it sounds like there are quite a few units in those buildings. I don't know how a three-story building that's wider, longer, or an additional building. Unfortunately, we can't take more public testimony, but you can do so at the conditional use hearing. But I just would like to say that I'd like to see that be designed a little bit differently. I think it would give that entire area a little bit more subtle feel. And we hear, I've been on planning and zoning 3 years, we hear a lot of testimony about people being concerned that it will change the value and nature of their single residential homes when you have, now, it may be senior living, the traffic may be calm, but because there is a large apartment unit, structure, I should say, it does change the single-family residential values that are all along that area. And I understand the neighbors' concerns that their home values might change, and the taller that the buildings get, the more likely that's the case. So I just want to say that it's always funny to me too to have a four-story senior living building, but I want to say, if the applicant, I realize you guys have already done all your design stuff, but sitting on planning and zoning, knowing my fellow commissioners on that body, I know that that's going to be something they're going to heavily discuss when you go before them. So
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Neri.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Pearl, one of the things for the public's perspective, that we don't have story restrictions, we have height restrictions. This is already a CG zone, so it already has a height limitation as it is. So whatever buildings are going to be built have to stay within that height limitation. So whether it is a big box store, a commercial building with offices, or a residential structure, they all have the same height limitation. So I know you know that. It's more for the public perspective that all of that will get evaluated. So it's really not about stories of buildings, but simply heights.
And to Mr. Mayor, if I may. To
Councilwoman Pearl.
I think the residential limitation, if it was in a residential zone, wouldn't that be limited to 35 feet in height? Maybe that's a question for staff. Caleb?
So the height limitation in the CG zoning district is 65 feet.
Correct. But because this is a residential structure, if it were in a residential zone, would it be limited to 35 feet?
So, Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Perot, that varies depending on the R zone. Some of it's 35, some of it goes up to 40. 35, 40 is a typical residential zoning height
So the
limitation.
40-foot height building would be consistent with that the applicants proposed? Would be consistent with a more residential use?
Mr. Mayor, again, 35, 40 feet is consistent with an R zone, so yeah, 40 foot, depending on what zone it has, yes.
I'm just trying to get an understanding of whether that's something that we want to consider limiting as part of the DA modification or not.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Hoagland.
Yeah, I just want to weigh in a little bit. I haven't said much. I mean, this is about changing a DA agreement, separating out property, and I kind of agree with Councilman Burnt a little bit. You know, we're getting ahead of ourselves. It's tempting to bake the cake when you've yet to decide the size of the pan, but because you're debating the size of the pan, you do want to get to, well, what kind of cake are we going to bake? And so that is tempting. But I do want to make sure the residents in the area understand that if the council votes to move forward with this DA, it sets up a process that allows you then to weigh in from the beginning, from the planning and zoning process, and if it makes it to city council, on those details and all those different things that have kind of popped up here tonight and issues that you've raised. And who knows, by the time it gets back to us, I don't know what that's going to look like. So, you know, I'm willing to support the change in this DA, and then see what comes forward, and then get into the recipe and see what details we have that we want to have or not have. So I think it's good to move forward on this and just see what comes out. The statistic I read on seniors, you know, in this country, 10,000 people turn 65 every day. And that's a lot of people moving, and we do know, as I was out campaigning, how many people have moved here that are senior citizens because families here, and so there's that need. We have a lot of needs out there for housing, and this is part of our variety that we want to offer. But is this the right place, the right thing To me, that'll come later. I think right now I'm going to support that next step of changing the DA.
Is there further discussion on the motion? If not, ask the clerk to call roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Perot.
Aye.
Councilmember Burnt. Councilmember Hoagland.
Aye.
Councilmember Strader.
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
All ayes, motion passes. All right. The next item on the agenda is item 10B, a public hearing for Castle Creek subdivision, H 2019-0130. Open this public hearing with staff comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The subject application before you is a miscellaneous application for a time extension of a preliminary plat on 6.5 acres of land, zone R8, located at 2432 East Amity Road, as shown on the screen in front of you. This property was annexed and received preliminary plat approval in 2014. They were granted an administrative time extension in 2016. And they were notified that they had until August of 18 to get the plat signed by the city engineer. They did submit their construction drawings for the subdivision in a timely manner. Those are reviewed and approved. Just that final step, the way that the city of Meridian tracks subdivisions and timeliness is city engineer signature, and they did not receive that in time. So this would extend that time for the city engineer to sign the final plat, so you don't have to start back over and do a new preliminary plat on this on the subject site. So staff is recommending approval of this request. The applicant is in agreement with the staff report, but as Mr. Brown mentioned, he's here too, so if you have any questions of him, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer them. With that, that is staff's report.
Any questions for staff? If not, would the applicant like to come forward and make his comments?
For the record, Kent Brown, 3161 East Springwood, Meridian, Idaho. Meridian's process for final plats is kind of different than some of the cities, and we end up submitting subdivisions way in advance to try to get on your agenda and get the plans approved, and then sometimes those sit on the shelf. In this case, the window of opportunity was very, very short from when the plat was approved to when it expired. It wasn't, we didn't have the opportunity to build it in the time frame after those plans, doing final acceptance with the highway district, having the bonding return to the city to cause us to go back to do a preliminary plat, then turn around and come back with a final plat. We have submitted the stuff for the signature surveyor, and hopefully with your approval tonight, we'll be anticipate that being the issue. We're just...
This is a public hearing. Is there any sign-ups for this item? Applicant.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Borton. Public record, this has been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All
We approve item 10B, the time extension H 2019-01.
Councilmember Perot.
Here.
Councilmember Burnt.
Sorry, aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries. I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Wesley.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, so that's why we moved it into this part. The Internet Crimes Against Children is a task. They pay all of his wages and all of his compensation to the new mayor's signature on it.
Great value for our citizens, for our state. I've had the opportunity to, I mean, it's a challenging job that we don't talk about enough.
Mr. Neri, we need a motion on this item?
MOU 2020 from the police department, the Internet Crimes Against Children.
We'll call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Perot.
All ayes, motion carries. Item 10D is recognize Councilman Borton for this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate which I think was well done, required the turnover in that position, 2-year term, no more than that, to invite others to have an opportunity to participate in the leadership roles of City Council. I think the last 2 years we've accomplished quite a bit. I think one of the overarching things that we did that I'm very proud of and excited about is some of the process improvements that we've done to try and make it more procedurally open and accessible to the public, whether it's our finances through OpenGov to our meeting format changes, trying to make it more accessible for our community as it grows. So I appreciate all of the support from our council in having that happen. So I wanted to put that out first. I know it's the time to put forth nominations. I would, Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, I would nominate Treg Burnt for the position of City Council President going forward.
Second.
Have a motion? If not, call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. How much you'd like to make?
By the name of Councilmember Byrd, and his name pops up quite. We would say that as council members in this body, but we leave as this council has been the finest council, and the 3 new council members. Discussions where we agree and where we disagree, but at the end of the day, for the support of this council and their trust in me and going forward to help whatever I can do to serve. Know that that's my goal always. So
thank you, Mr. Mayor. The second position for Vice President is our next City Council Vice President.
Second.
If not, all those in favor?
Mr. Mayor. Well, thank you for the nomination. I look forward to serving and really agree with, and that's the fact that, yeah, there'll be times we disagree, is that the fact that we want what's best, and we just may come at it different ways every now and then, but in the end, we can all have, and but we'll face them together and do the best we can. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Moving on, item 11A, ordinance number 1868. I'm going to ask the clerk read this by title.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an ordinance related to H 2019-0099 Englewood Place subdivision for annexation of a parcel of land situated in the southwest one quarter of the southwest one quarter of Section 21, Township 3 North, Range 1 East, Boise, Meridian, Ada County, Idaho, as described in Attachment A, and annexing certain lands and territory situated in Ada County, Idaho, and adjacent and contiguous to the corporate limits of this City of Meridian as requested by the City of Meridian, establishing and determining the land use zoning classification of 10.29 acres of land from the RUT to the CC Commercial Business 3.761 and R15 Medium High Density Residential 6.532 acres, zoning districts in the Meridian City Code, providing that copies of this ordinance shall be filed with the Ada County Assessor, the Ada County Recorder, and the Idaho State Tax Commission as required by law, and providing for a summary of the ordinance and providing for a waiver of the reading rules and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Council. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Borton.
move we approve ordinance number 20-18.
Councilmember Perot.
Aye.
Councilmember Burnt.
Aye.
Councilmember Hoagland.
Aye.
Councilmember Strader.
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
This by title.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's an ordinance related to H 2000 North, Range 1 East, Boise, Meridian, Ada County, Idaho, as establishing and determining the land use zoning classification of 2.29 acres of land from RUT to R2, load required by law, and providing for a summary of the ordinance and providing for a waiver of the reading rules and providing an effective date.
And hopefully no one does.
Would anybody out there like this read in its entirety?
Ordinance number 20-1869 with suspension of rules.
Second.
Councilmember Burnt.
Aye.
Councilmember Hoagland.
Aye.
Councilmember Strader.
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Clerk, to read this by title.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an ordinance amending Meridian.
Is there anybody that'd like this read in its entirety?
President Byrne has just informed me that my predecessor, Genesis,
Every single
always made these motions. 1870, amending Meridian City Code as codified.
If not, we'll call the question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Perot.
Aye.
Councilmember Burnt.
Aye.
Councilmember Hoagland.
Aye.
Councilmember Strader.
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
All ayes. We need to go back to item 10D.
Mr. Mayor, I was going to ask on the liaison appointments, we didn't discuss those. We normally would bring next week a resolution outlining what all those are, but usually have identified them tonight, if you have them prepared.
yes. One moment, I'll get to it. Mr. Mayor,
Council President Burt.
would you like me just to go down just the list of each council member and what responsibilities they have?
That would be awesome.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, number one, Councilmember Brad Hoagland. He has been assigned the liaison role for the Fire Department, the Parks Department, and will represent council at Rural Fire and at the Parks Commission. Any questions for you? Joseph W. Borton, Human Resources, and will also represent the commission, any questions or concerns from Councilmember Joseph's own role of Community Development. In association with that, will represent the council. We'll notify Compass so that you can be, you'll receive direct emails from Compass, and they'll send out. Raider, you ready?
Yep.
You will be best buddies with our dear friend and cohort board. Any questions?
Thank you. I really look forward to that.
I know that that's you were very passionate about that, so we're excited to have you play those roles. And last but not least, my dear friend, Councilmember Luke Kavanagh, and he's going to stay, has agreed to stay with his existing roles with IT, the clerk's office, and finance, and will continue to represent the council at VRT and in its executive board, and also the Transportation Commission. I doubt you have any questions.
Mr. President, I do actually just have a question.
All right.
As I understand, I think Meridian has the opportunity for 2 seats on Valley Regional Transit's board.
So what? So Councilwoman Milam used to be on that, right?
Correct.
Okay. So it would be you and someone else.
We would need to
One more person.
bring in. We don't. Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Charlie's on campus. Compass.
So, and there's much larger conversation happening about VRT and our board seats, and that's a conversation for another day. But I would think it would be appropriate for us to bring another name to replace Councilmember Milam at VRT. I think there's a value of making sure that this body is represented in those spots. Here's what's going on in MDC, those types of things. I think that we should lean towards having our council.
Mayor serve in that role, because many of the other cities have mayors who serve in that role. I'm open.
Wholeheartedly support and welcome that. I think that we need, as the second largest city, we need to have your voice at VRT talking about public transit. We have that vacancy that we'll need to work to fill.
Mr. Mayor, are you sounds like you are wanting to be the second.
I'm willing to serve in that role if it makes sense to have the mayor, because the other mayors are present.
Right. No, I
From that
agree.
standpoint, assuming it doesn't, there's no conflicts with the other existing meetings that are there, whether it's and I assume it not, because Compass and VRT have a lot of the same members.
Right.
That would be my only question. I'd like to see when those meetings are to make sure that they aren't going to cause a conflict with something else at this point in time, but otherwise I'd be interested in taking on that role.
Well, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I would agree with Councilmember Kavanagh. If you're interested, it makes sense to have you on there and have your voice there. So unless there's anything that anyone else would like to discuss, I think that makes sense.
Okay. Well, we'll follow up, and if there's any problems, then we can talk offline and you can find someone suitable.
Who are new, I would encourage the directors that to reach out. It's quite often that we meet with them and we discuss things with them. And
that back?
Mr. Mayor, no, we will. I took down all the notes of that. I will bring back a resolution next week for.
Can we get a breakdown of who from mayor and city council will be represented on MDC, on Compass, and we have 2 seats?
So I believe that would be the mayor.
Myself.
Yeah, and it would be another council member involved with Compass, but Charlie has had a ton of experience with that board. He's served on their executive board for a lot of years and traveled with Mr. Stahl to different meetings. So, but open to that discussion.
Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, my apologies.
Councilman Kavanagh.
Mr. Mayor, Council President Burnt. As long as the rhetoric is that it's not that Meridian City Council members don't want to participate. Over the last few weeks, I've had an opportunity to engage with a few Compass members, and there's always been a question about why we don't have more council members, and they've always said they've been told it's because members of this board don't want to participate. And I was surprised to hear that, because I think we all would be happy and willing to participate. So I, for one, would be one that would be happy to participate in Compass. I would never, I think it was, can't remember which one of you said, you know, kind of we walk on the shoulders of giants, and Charlie Roundtree is definitely a giant. I wouldn't take anything away from his expertise. I don't want him to feel like that he's there because nobody else in this body is willing to take on that responsibility.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Burt.
if you don't mind, I would be more than happy to reach out to Charlie and just have a discussion with him just to gauge his interest. I know that he's traveling a little bit more as a, him and Nancy. I think they might, are they in Hawaii right now? Exactly. And so I'll reach out to Charlie and gauge his interest and get back to you.
Any topics for future meetings?
Oh, we got a list, but let's wait.
If not,
No, one second. Mr. Mayor, one last thing about MDC. I forgot to mention MDC as well.
Oh, yeah.
So I sit on MDC, and the mayor also sits on the MDC. And so I know in the past, we've had some lively discussion in regard to having council member representation on MDC. I have a meeting tomorrow with the mayor, and I'll just chat with her about that as well.
Mayor?
Excuse
Or-
me. Mayor, the old,
Mayor,
Mayor Tammy. Former
Mayor
Mayor
Tammy is still planning on serving in that role. There's nothing we can do to remove her from that role, even if you want to, because she'd have to resign.